Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Good Book Hunting. My name is Gretchen. I'm the Digital Services Librarian here at the Westfield Athenaeum, and this is a series of videos where me and my colleagues use different resources that you can access to show you how to find read-alike titles or similar books to books that have a really long wait list for Westfield patrons. So there's a chance that you're on a wait list for one of these books and it's not going to come in for a while and you need something to read in the meantime. Or you've really liked the author and maybe you'd like to read another book. So we'll show you a different resource each time that you can use yourself to find even more books, because more books is always the goal. So in this month, we're using 4 new resources, or different resources, I should say. 2 are repeats from last month and 2 are new. I will be using Google, good old Google, not Google Books as we used last month. Anne will be using a resource called Fantastic Fiction. Olivia will be using the catalog, and Erica will be using an online resource called NoveList. And again, there will be different videos where we show you by sharing our screen how our resource works. But today, Erica is going to use NoveList to find books that are similar to the book The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This is equally on the site that I'm on saying fiction and fantasy. It won a Goodreads Choice Award for the best fiction of 2020. And the small descriptor that I give you, just to give you a taste of what this book is about. In The Midnight Library, Matt Haig's enchanting new novel, Nora Seed finds herself faced with this decision. Faced with the possibility of changing her life for a new one, following a different career, undoing old breakups, realizing her dreams of becoming a glaciologist, she must search within herself as she travels to the Midnight Library to decide what is truly fulfilling in life and what makes it worth living in the first place. And the Midnight Library is a library on the edge of the universe that contains an infinite number of books from different realities. So it's a little bit fiction, a little bit fantasy, a little bit, I would say, also sci-fi. So I will be really fascinated to see what read-alikes we come up with, because it sounds like it's a little bit of a mixed genre book. So again, I will head over to do a Google search while Anne and Olivia also get busy, and Erica will show you how to use NoveList for this book.
Hi everyone, I'm Erica. I'm the Technology Services Librarian here at the Ath, and I'm going to show you how to use NoveList, but I'm going to shake it up a little bit. Last month I showed you how to use NoveList by going through our website. This month I'm going to show you how to use NoveList by going through our catalog, because it is actually kind of a part of our catalog. So when you pull up just a book, normally just a normal listing book, not like a large print or an audiobook or anything like that, you can actually see all the information for NoveList right there in the catalog without even having to jump through hoops to get to the site itself. So let's get started. All right, getting started here, I'm just going to go to westfield.cwmars.org. It might be a little bit different from the URL you're used to, or it just might be a brand new URL or whatever, or maybe you get to the catalog a different way. This is one way you can get to it, so that automatically right off the bat, you're limited to looking at items that are in our library. So I'm going to put in the Midnight Library, and you can see that I already did a little bit of searching here before. So we're going to search, and this is going to bring up items that are not only in the Westfield Athenaeum, but also in all of CW Mars. And right here, you'll see 0 out of 1 copy available at the Westfield Athenaeum. That means we do have 1 copy right now. It's checked out. So that's the one that we want to look at, because that's the one that's going to have the holds on it since it's already checked out. And we're going to look at this. Here's some basic information. If you're looking for more information on the catalog in general, I would recommend you check out one of our Good Book Hunting episodes where Olivia shows you how to use the catalog and shows you some different little perks of using it. So we're going to scroll down, and right here we start entering the NoveList section. So right off the bat, we can look at this little similar titles widget here. So the first one we have is A Long Way Down by Nick Hornby, and then it says why this title. So you can actually look right off the bat at why this title has been chosen to accompany the Midnight Library as a read-alike, and these lists are curated by librarians, so you know they're good. So let's see, though A Long Way Down lacks the creative and unusual framing device of the Midnight Library, both treat mental illness and suicide with a gentle hand, mixing compassion and humor as the characters come to terms with their choices going forward. And the next one is Life After Life by Kate Atkinson. So this is a literary fiction, even though Midnight Library is science fiction, but it does follow protagonists as they live multiple versions of their lives and look at the different consequences of doing so. Next one is Or What You Will by Jo Walton. Again, why this title? So this is protagonists looking to write their own story and kind of hopping between life and death and just kind of exploring new things in either science fiction, which is Midnight Library, or fantasy, which is Or What You Will. Next one, we have The Impossible Lives of Greta Wells by Andrew Sean Greer. So let's see, we've got in both of these novels, we got depressed women who are able to experience different lives with different results, while Impossible Lives is more time travel versus Midnight Library being alternate realities. Which is kind of an interesting comparison between the two. The next one is The Invisible Library by Genevieve Cogman. And this is, again, looking at different choices. Actually, this is Spies on a Quest. Both of these books are dealing with libraries that give access to parallel universes and have a female protagonist. So that's kind of cool that you have two different books that deal with alternate realities and kind of finding new things that way. Before we go, I'm just going to show you a couple of more elements of this little novelist section in the catalog. Obviously, there are more books listed here that you can always explore. We just usually tend to do the top 5, but you can also click into similar authors. You can open up NoveList itself to see the full list of information. You can choose what you like about the story here. Like, I like that this book is mystical and that it's science fiction. And NoveList is going to return some books that share those same elements. So notice how this list is separate from the list above, because it doesn't have that engaging keyword in it, just like the Midnight Library does. So then you can, even scrolling down a little bit further, you see reviews, either professional reviews or just community reviews on Goodreads, and looking at different awards that this might have won, different lists like that. So that is using NoveList through the catalog. So let's head back to everybody else and see what they got.
So what's fun about this is that normally I leave Erica until last, because no matter how silly our resources may get sometimes, like NoveList is so good at telling you exactly why and for what reasons those books are similar. Because I'm gonna tell you what, guys, I did not have a good time with Google. And again, I'm not going to tell you my whole thought process, but essentially the problem was that it's not like Midnight Library is Matt Haig's first book, but oftentimes what happens with new books is there's not enough time to generate if you liked this, then that. But the second problem with Matt Haig is that while he's not popular enough really to have like a list of books similar to Matt Haig or books like his books, he shows up on a lot of different lists for, like, you know, if you like Douglas Adams, Matt Haig shows up on one of those lists. So this Google search was really fascinating. It felt like reverse, like doing it in reverse. So that might also tell you a sense of Matt Haig, though, as well as you look through the results and say, oh, well, if all these people are recommending him for all these different authors, you know, that might help you make some connections as well. But what I did eventually find specific to the Midnight Library is a website called Booklist Queen. And it is a review of the book with a publisher's description. And then it also gives you some lists that it's been featured in, which also might have some similar books, but for this website, it was just best books of fall 20 and September reading list 2020. So that's not going to give you similar books. But on the bottom, there were 3 similar books that, based on their review, this person has suggested. And the first is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. Erin Morgenstern is the author of The Night Circus. This is her new book. It also suggests the new Jodi Picoult, The Book of Two Ways. This one is not a new release. The third one is The Immortalists by Chloe Benjamin, which I've actually read, and considering the genre bending life relationships, questioning of life that seems to be happening in Midnight Library, I feel like The Immortalist is a really, really good similar book for the Midnight Library, having not read that one. So I have faith based on that the Book of Two Ways and The Starless Sea will be decent similar books, if not as related as NoveList. But that's the best I'm going to be able to do for you this time around. Sorry, only 3 from me. But Anne, why don't you tell us what fantastic fiction gave you?
Sounds good, thanks. I actually am fascinated by the books that fantastic fiction gave me, but they all are in the sort of science fiction category, and they range from horror to, science fiction / horror, science fiction, people discovering paths and monsters and whatnot. But the one thing that's also common about them is that they're all releases in 2020. So those of you who know science fiction more than I do may have better recommendations. But the first one they recommend is Ministry for the Future by Kim Stanley Robinson. And this is established in 2025. The purpose for the new organization was simple: to advance the world's future generations and to protect all living creatures, present and future. It soon became known that the Ministry for the Future became known as the Ministry for the Future, and this is its story. And so this is a traditional science fiction author, but it sounds like a really interesting book and an interesting premise. The next book that they offered was Christopher Paolini's To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. And To Sleep in a Sea of Stars is a brand new epic novel from the #1 New York Times bestselling author of Aragon, Christopher Paolini. And it's sort of a person dreaming about, during a routine survey mission on an uncolonized planet, Kira finds an alien relic. At first she's delighted, but elation turns into terror when the ancient dust around her begins to move. And let me give you the third and the fourth. The third is a collection of novellas by Harry Turtledove, James Morrow, and Kat Rambo. And the title is And the Last Trump Shall Sound. And it is 3 alarmingly eclectic novellas imagine a ravaged America left behind by the totalitarian reign of Donald Trump in this chilling anthology, which picks up after Trump's death in 2024 during the second great COVID outbreak. So contemporary to us, I hope, the connections would be fascinating. I don't quite get them, but I think the book is interesting to me, and I'd have to understand both a little bit more, but I thought that was kind of a fun title to throw in. And the last one that's offered by Fantastic Fiction is The Doors of Eden by Adrian Tchaikovsky. And Adrian Tchaikovsky is an Arthur C. Clarke award-winning author. If you're not familiar, sort of a famous, or one of the sort of gold standard science fiction awards. Doors of Eden is an extraordinary feat of the imagination, a page-turning adventure about parallel universes and the monsters that they hide. I can see how that relates to the novellas, but again, it's imagining other worlds and different outcomes. There's a lot of the similarities, I think, between these are parallel universes. In terms of suggestions, I'm pretty pleased by what they offer. So back to you guys.
I think that it's really interesting that, particularly for our 2 resources, the one that I found seemed really committed more to like the fiction, like fantasy-esque parts of Midnight Library, whereas Anne's was more committed to the science fiction. I feel like the resources, it's really hard to pin down exactly what the genre of this book is. So they can say, all right, we're just going to pick this one thing and then we're going to go off on that. Of course, NoveList is a little bit better at picking more than one thing and more than one theme, but clearly these other things that we found are just like, science fiction. So Olivia, since the catalog sometimes only lets you pick one thing, what route did you go down for this book?
Yeah, so I decided to go with the subject choice psychology dash fiction. One could say I made the choice. That was a bad joke. So the books that we returned were Uprooted by Naomi Novik, which again, these all have to deal with like an existential choice of like, what will happen to my life if I do this? What will happen to my life if I don't do this? Uprooted is definitely a fantasy. And then the next one is History of Wolves, a novel, Emily Fridlund. This one is not fantasy. This is pure fiction, but again, choice. Just Fate by Kat Patrick. Again, straight up fiction. Lotus, a novel by Lijia, Zhang. Again, just regular fiction, no fantasy elements. And then the last one, which really threw me, is Cottage by the Sea, a novel by Debbie Macomber. Not totally sure, I think, except for the fact that choice psychology dash fiction is literally just one of the top subject lines for that one. And that is what I found.
I really liked doing this list. I feel like each one of us, you know, no matter what kind of a reader you are, I feel like even if maybe the Midnight Library isn't a book that was on your radar, there are a lot of things happening in all of our different lists that might appeal to you as a reader. And again, some of them might not be as similar to the actual book that we started with as we wanted, but they might be similar in writing styles, tones, themes, you know, just drilling it down like Olivia did to this idea of choice, which I think can appeal to you no matter what your favorite genre is. So I hope that this has given you some ideas on how to use NoveList for yourself or maybe another book. And feel free to, as always, give us a call. The link to request any of these books will be up in the description, as will be the entire list of books that we found. And hopefully you'll join us next time as we model yet another resource. So thanks for joining us today. Bye.